What's up guys, Asian here again with another dungeon guide video. This time we'll be going over Cradle of Shadows. This is a DLC dungeon. You're going to need access to Shadows of the Hist, that DLC, or have an active ESO Plus subscription in order to get into this dungeon. As a DLC dungeon, it is more difficult than your non-DLC dungeons. So be prepared. Most people recommend having at least CP 300 before you attempt any DLC dungeons, and I do highly recommend being at the very least familiar with your build before you go ahead and start doing DLC dungeons. You can skip this entire room here just by following the path that we just took. For the trash mob pulls here, the biggest dangers are going to be your two-handers. They have a AoE attack that can one-shot your DPS and healer, so if you're the tank, make sure to face them away from everybody. You can line of sight a lot of these pulls. Basically what you would have to do is just hide behind the corner and then have the tank go out and pull the next group of ads. When you do that, then all the ads will just come over to you, and you can just fight them at the corner. For this section here, it's very helpful if your tank has rapids. You can use rapids. You basically just run along to the first boss, lighting the braziers along the way. Ignore the spiders. Everybody should hide behind that post. That'll be able to pull all the spiders towards you. Try to avoid pulling the boss, but sometimes it's unavoidable. This boss here is your standard spider Daedra. Just has an interruptible attack that you can interrupt. At some point during the fight, she will turn off the brazier that you are right next to. When this happens, you can run over to one of the other two braziers, light that one, and then just continue to fight her by the brazier. She will take about 10% of the damage you deal when she's not in the light. So if you're the tank, make sure to taunt her and bring her into the light so that way your DPS can do their maximum amount of damage. Once you kill her, you basically do the exact same thing you did to get there. Basically what you do is just light all the braziers along the way to the next boss, and then you just kill all of the spiders with your AoE attacks. Again, try to avoid pulling the boss if you can help it. Once all the spiders are dead, you can resituate yourself, get your resources back, and then start the boss fight. This boss here has a couple of moves you need to watch out for. The first move to be careful of is her heavy attack. It does have a cleave, and it is a one-shot on the tank. So if you're DPS or healer, make sure you don't stand behind the tank. Next move you see there is a large red AoE. That is a one-shot to everybody, including the tank. After she does that, she'll teleport around and might do one of her charge attacks. Make sure to interrupt that with Crushing Shock or a Bash. If you don't interrupt it, she will fire out bolts of magic that will deal damage to everybody. You can block it or you can dodge it. You see she will turn off the braziers during the fight. You can relight them, just go up to them and hit the synergy button. If your DPS is high enough, you might be able to ignore it, but to be on the safe side, you should have one of your DPS be responsible for relighting the braziers. This will stop the ads from spawning and it'll let you damage the ads that do spawn. In addition, the boss, just like the last boss, can only really be damaged if she is within the light. Once you kill her, you will no longer take damage from the darkness within the caverns. You basically go up, pull the lever, and head off to the next boss here. You have one trash pull before you face off against the next boss here. Spider, she has only one move to watch out for. She will kind of pull everybody in towards her, and after she does that, she will kind of have a red AoE circle there, as you can see there. It's a one-shot to everybody within it, so when you see that popping up, just make sure to get out of that circle if you are within melee range. She will summon some spider ads, nothing really to worry about. Some poison AoEs, you can just easily get out of those. She will feed on the bodies of your allies and the dead spiders to restore health. Just make sure to bash that. This is the next boss, probably one of the more difficult bosses. This one and the second boss. You're gonna have to wait a little bit, wait for the animation to stop before you can pull the boss. What we normally do is we normally just tank the boss right by the door. There's a couple of moves you got to worry about. She has a heavy attack that does do an AoE effect, so if you are a DPS healer, watch out for that. At some point he'll raise his hand into the air and split off into copies. When that happens, the best strategy is to have the tank run around, make sure to pull the boss into those copies. He's invincible while those copies are up, so you're going to have to run into them. The other option is to kill the copies and have the tank run around and gather up the essence that appears when they die. You'll see there that that statue does shoot out red AoE meteors at you. So do keep in mind, watch your feet, make sure to get out of those meteors whenever they happen. When they land, they do send out also additional waves, so just kind of want to watch out for those. So even if the red circle is not on you, just be on the lookout for the red waves. Tank can probably take a hit from the meteors. You can do it. Just be mindful of what the boss is doing. There's one other move that the boss does that I don't believe we see in this fight. What he'll do is he'll teleport to each player, leave a red rune wherever he lands. Once he does that, when he finishes teleporting to everybody, he will teleport back to whoever he has aggro on. It should be the tank. He will stun you. 2 adds will spawn. You need to interrupt the 2 adds with something like Crushing Shock or bash them. Otherwise, it's going to be a one-shot on the tank. Once those adds are down, the tank should block or dodge roll away from the boss in order to avoid the hit that would be that happens. For this section of the dungeon, you're going to want to watch out for the Ogrims. The Ogrims basically have a vomit move that deals a lot of damage in front of them. If you're the tank, make sure to face the Ogrim away from the group, as always, so they don't get caught with that by that vomit attack. For this pull here, if the tank goes into the room and goes ahead and taunts the enemies, everybody else can pretty much stand behind that door. Those adds will not go through the door, and you can basically AoE them down. Just be mindful that the Ogrim does their spit attack, and it will actually hit through the door, so just be mindful of that. We're going to go into the final boss here. For this boss, a very good strategy to use is to have your healer and tank slot Purge. You can see Purge on my bar here. It's also a very good idea if you have a minimap add-on to enable the minimap. Is there health glitched for anybody else? The Velidreth will pick one person with the highest amount of ultimate and basically drain that person's ultimate and summon those orbs. Those color of those orbs correspond to the highest resource pool of whoever had their ultimate drained. So as you can see there, since I was the tank, I had the highest amount of ultimate. So the orbs are red, and they will apply a health debuff, a health drain debuff to whoever touches those orbs. You can use Purge, and you can use Purify from Extended Ritual to get rid of that debuff. If you have a magical user get their ultimate drained, those orbs will also apply a magical steal debuff, and of course the green orbs will apply a stamina steal debuff. For this reason, it's probably best to have the tank be the one who keeps their ultimate up. Everybody else should slot cheap ultimates and use them on cooldown, so that way the ultimates they will never have their ultimate drained. This is because stamina is very important for the tank, obviously, to continue blocking. Velidreth has some pretty heavy hits that you're going to want to block. And of course, Magicka is bad for the healer. Your healer is going to need to use Magicka to heal, and if they don't have Magicka, then you're not getting healed. So the preferred strategy right now is for the tank to keep their ultimate up, basically not use their ultimate. And just for the healer and tank to use Purge to clear that health debuff if anybody does manage to get hit with those orbs. As the tank, I normally only use Purge when I myself get hit by an orb. The healer normally purges everything else. So this section of the fight here, when Velidreth hits 60% and 30%, she will banish you to the catacombs. It's basically a maze. During the fight, 2 flame Atronach or flesh Atronachs will spawn. You need to kill them right away, and your 2 DPS need to activate the synergy next to their dead bodies to pick up the light. during the catacombs phase here, you saw that we basically got dumped down. We had to work our way back up to this portion here. There are going to be a couple of doors. There's one side has 3 doors, the other side has 4 doors. On hard mode, only one of those doors is going to be open. On non-hard mode, all but one of those doors will be open. So basically what happens is you get banished. You basically need to make your way back up to this arena, and you need to make sure that everybody gets back at around the same time. This is just because if 2 people get down, it's going to be really hard to sustain, because the tank, or either you will have a healer and no tank, or have a tank and no healer, which is obviously not a good situation to be in. We need to watch out for the red pads. The red pads obviously are traps. Going to want to avoid the red pads in the catacombs. You're going to have a couple of ads out there. You can just ignore them until you get to that platform. You can kill them at the platform there if you're waiting on the other group to get to their portion there. On hard mode 2, the statue will again throw out meteors, so watch your feet. Unfortunately, if you're the tank, you basically need to just shield up, stand your ground, and block through those meteors. Ads will spawn throughout the fight. If you're the tank, you can try the best to taunt the ads, but you really need to pay attention to Velidreth during this fight, so don't feel bad if you can't taunt all the ads. When the Flesh Atronax spawn, DPS should focus on the Flesh Atronax, ignore the boss. If someone does happen to die, while somebody reses, Velidreth will sometimes target the player. You need to interrupt that in order to res the player. If you don't do that, then she will basically interrupt the res. So you're going to want to bash whenever somebody is resing. What you saw there was Shadow Sense. She says a line. It's always going to be the same. She's going to say, "Don't move a muscle." When she says that, you guys don't move. She's going to climb up into the ceiling. Basically, what you have to do is you need to sit there and wait until your screen is no longer dark, and you will hear a rumbling sound, and you'll hear little tufts of dirt that show up on the ground. When you hear the rumbling sound and you see the tufts of dirt, you need to dodge roll out and away from your teammates. If you don't do that, it's basically a one-shot. I've only really ever seen myself survive it, but even then, that was only with full health. During that phase, the orbs will not move and the ads will also disappear, so you can use that time to basically use Purge, res your teammates if you're close enough. You can res during that phase there. During Shadow Sense, that doesn't count. If you are getting res though, do not pick yourself up until after Shadow Sense is done, because if you do res, it does actually count as movement, so you will immediately get hit by that spike. You can see here we coordinate when we got down from the catacombs. Right when you go down, she will always spawn the orbs again, giving you some time to get the taunt back on, kind of resituate yourself. Do keep in mind, it is very, very important that you coordinate when you drop down to hit the boss. If one group drops down, then it will be whichever one of those 2 people has the highest ultimate and not all 4. So it's important for whoever ultimate's getting drained, in this case, it's the tank, that they go down first. Their group goes down first. You can see here, this is Shadow Sense here. Cream is still able to res. And you can see kind of how the timing goes for Shadow Sense there. Velidreth herself doesn't really have too much. She has a heavy attack you need to block, and she kind of has a frontal cleave. So if you are DPS and healer, obviously don't stand in front of the boss, because you might get hit by that cleave. That cleave does apply a dot that you cannot get rid of using Purify or Purge. So the healer is going to have to heal the tank through that dot. The dot is pretty severe, so healers, you're going to have your hands full just making sure the tank is up, along with your 2 DPS. Again, as you can see here, we got Banished to Catacombs at about 30% health. This is the path that we're taking for the 4-door. You are going to have to loop back around the long way just to avoid the Horvors. The Horvors do deal the most amount of damage here. The Shadow Fangs, I think they're called, don't actually deal too much damage, but the Horvors are the ones that are going to kill you. So if you are waiting for the second group to come down and you see Horvors heading towards you, you're going to have to jump down, otherwise you guys are going to die. Just based on this section of the fight, the Catacombs, it's very, very important to use voice communications. It is possible to do this fight without voice communications, but it is definitely significantly more difficult because you do need to time when you jump back down into the boss room. If it's ill-timed, then you're going to be, again, you'll either be having no tank or no healer. As you can see there, since they jumped down before us, I did not get my ultimate drained, even though I have 400 ultimate. So again, it's very important that whoever's ultimate's getting drained, their group jumps down first. At this point here, this last phase here, the tank can normally use their ultimate at this point. At this point, it's just kind of just a burn phase. You just basically need to kill Velidreth. Welcome back. And there we go. Velidreth is dead. The drops do not spawn on her. It will spawn at the statue there. So that's Vet Cradle of Shadows hard mode. Definitely a very difficult dungeon, but if you guys keep going at it, I'm sure you'll be able to clear it. That's it for this video. Hope it helps, and I'll see you guys in the next dungeon.